Hello everyone, welcome to What I've Knit and my latest WIP. My name is Karen and I'm joining you from Toronto, Canada. I am a knitter and this is the third episode that I've created to share with you what I've knit. And I take these larger videos and I make them into short videos for each of the projects, and I link that into my Ravelry page for each of the projects into the notes section. So I have some text instructions, but I'm also adding these video instructions about my projects, and I'm hoping that it's going to be helpful to those of you who wish to learn, and I hope it's inspiring for those of you who are looking for something new to create. I just want to give back to the community that has been so great at assisting me in my learning and my knitting journey. So let's get started. These are the finished objects that I have completed during the month of August. As you can see, there are a number of stuffies, some stuffy toys, I guess some might say. There's also a couple items for myself that I'm enjoying wearing, and there are a few gifts and a final item for a charity knit that I've been working on for the past couple months. So these are all of the items that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to tell you about the pattern, the designer, why I selected that particular pattern, the yarns, the needle, the construction, as well as any changes that I made and what I learned. And if I was going to do this project again, what might I change going forward? So this is a little bear. Isn't he cute? Aren't she cute? I have been on a stuffy craze for the last year. We have had a number of little babies in our families, and I have been looking to make stuffies for these little children. And as I was searching for different animals on Ravelry and other areas, I came across this little bear design by Melody Hoffman, and I just thought it was the cutest thing. I wasn't sure it was what I wanted for the kids at the time, but I had to put it in my queue because I just thought this little bear was super cute. So it had been sitting in my queue for a while, and I pulled it up and thought, okay, it's time for me to make this. And it is a bottom-up construction, and knitting in the round until you get up to the snout area. And at this point, the instructions by Melody are to do intarsia knitting, which means you're coming across here with the brown, you connect with the beige, drop that brown, continue on with the beige, and then you connect with another brown and you go around the back, and then you come forward and do that again. So there would be no floats behind the snout. If there were, that would be ferrule knitting, and she has instructed this as intarsia knitting. So you put that piece in, and then you go to the top and you Kitchener stitch the ears and that center piece, and then there's a little hole down here and you stuff it. In this pattern, she calls for using 3.75 millimeter needles, a sport weight yarn, to create this, and I used actually 3.75 millimeter needles because I don't have 3.75 DPN, so I used 3.5s, and I used a DK weight yarn that I got at one of my local yarn shops, and it's called Tropical Lane. So I'll just hold that tab up for you. And this is 100% merino yarn. It is made in Italy, and the colorway is 03. I think it's an older yarn. I found it in the basement. It was on sale, but I thought it was a perfect color for this little bear. And it also worked well for gauge with the needles. And then for the snout, I used a Charisma, and that's a Drops Charisma, and the colorway is 85. So it's a little bit darker than a cream, more of a beigey color. So the changes that I made, I did the bottom up construction, but when I got to this point, I was working in the round. I just put a removable marker right here, and I continued with brown all the way up. I finished the one ear, and I Kitchener stitched the ear and the middle section, and I left the other ear on barber cord at that point. And then I did duplicate stitching for the snout. So I just followed the instructions. She had a chart, and I just did the duplicate stitch. And then I did embroidery for the nose and this little mouthpiece. And I did the embroidery for the eyes. After I finished that, I washed it and let it dry. And then once it was dry, I sealed this bottom with Kitchener stitch, and I stuffed everything from the top, and I then sealed off the ear with a Kitchener stitch. And I also added, this isn't in her pattern, I don't know how well you can see that, but you can see I put a little tail there just with a little I-cord. And yeah, that's Little Bear. I love this little bear. I think it's super, super cute. It's such a simple pattern. I may have overstuffed mine compared to Melody's, which is, hers is so beautiful. You have to go take a look at it. So I probably wouldn't stuff it as much next time, because at some point you can see through to the polyfill that I have inside there. But I think the bear is absolutely super cute, and now I do think I would make this going forward for a little baby. I think it'd be really nice to have a baby blanket, and this could be the pillow that would go with it, or like, and serve also as a stuffy. So I think Little Bear would be a great gift for a child. What I would do different next time is when I did the double stitching, I should have left the ends out in front while I washed it, stuffed it. And then with my darning needle, I could have pushed the ends of the black a little bit deeper. Like at points, I've been fussing with this one eye because I can see the black behind it, and it's really bothering me. I might still have to play around with it, but that's what I would do. I would leave those duplicate stitch threads out. I'd lock them on the inside, but then I'd pull them out this side, and once I have it all stuffed, I'd push them through. I did add my little tag on there, so it says Bear Wear on that side. Flip it around, it says Care Knit, because it's Care Bear Knitwear. So that's the Little Bear. Going forward, definitely I'm gonna make Little Bear again. This next finish object that I'd like to show you, I actually have it on. It is blouse number 2. It's a design by My Favorite Things Knitwear, and I absolutely love this. I'm going to step back so that you can see it. Now, I will tell you that this designer instructed that with gauge, it would be a 4mm needle or a US 6, and to use a DK weight yarn. And in this case, I used a Noble cotton, and I'll just grab the tab to show you. It is from Cascade Yarns, and this is the colorway 36. So it's a steel, a light gray, 100% cotton, and I absolutely love this design. I think the designer did a great job. It is a top-down construction. There are some short rows at the back and the front of this design. It's really, really simple cast on, and then it's knit top down, and then you separate for the sleeves, and then you're going back and forth, and then you pick up the body together and finish the body in the round. Also, at the very end, it's just a simple cast off. And then you pick up for the sleeves in the armholes, and you knit the sleeves in the round, again 4mm needles, and simple cast off. There's no decreasing to the sleeves. They are the same all the way along, and then they have that same simple cast off there. What I will tell you is I made this during the month of August, and it has been extremely hot here in Ontario during the summer, with temperatures over 30 and with humidity into the 40s. And there was, when I looked at this pattern, I loved it, and I'll show you a picture of the original, but I made some changes to it because I didn't want to have this heavy garment sitting on my lap in this heat. And I could see that when I read the pattern, there were going to be a lot of purl rows, and I just wasn't into it. My headspace wasn't there. So I said, yeah, no, so I changed the pattern, and I just, wherever they wanted purls on the right hand side, I just did knits, whether it was in the round or back and forth. And what I really love about this design, and I'm just going to hold it up here so you can see it, but they have this great little trim that goes all the way under the underarm. It's down the side of the body. It's on top of the shoulders, which I think looks absolutely beautiful. I love it. And I would definitely make this again. I made a size small, which for me, I like to wear things a little bit baggier and bigger, so for me it's okay. But I would definitely make this again, and I would follow and do the purl rows that the designer did in the original one. I wouldn't make those changes that I did to survive the summer knit that I did. There's nothing else that I changed. I would next time maybe do this. I love it in the cotton, but if to wear it in the winter, I probably would do it in a 100% wool in a merino, and I would make it the same size. You did have the option to put on an I-cord finish on the neck, and so I tried it on once it was done, and I feared that it was going to be a bit too wide for me and come off the shoulders, and I didn't want that to happen. So what I did was put that I-cord finish on. That is optional in the pattern, and I think it just helps a little bit for sizing around my neckline. But I really love the sweater. This cotton is super comfortable. I found it really easy to knit. The pattern, the instructions are great to follow, and I'm really happy with this. I'm gonna make another one for sure. It's my blouse number 2 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. Teddy bear toy design by Maria Ermolova, also known as Polishka Bunny if you follow on Instagram or also on Ravelry. Maria has amazing designs for stuffies as well as clothing that she makes for the stuffies. I've made these teddy bears with 3 other teddy bears, and I think I'm going to do another one this month. I've made her monkey, her goose, and a snowman and 2 Grinch. So I've made quite a number of her. I really love Maria's patterns. There's great instructions in these patterns, and I just keep going back to her designs. This past month, a friend had given to me this Simply Soft Caron yarn. It's a tweed, and it's in the colorway 23001. It's an off-white with a little bit of flex in there. I guess I'll turn it this way to show you. And so she gave me a number of balls and said, you know, you can use this for charity or whatever you want to make with it. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to make her a couple of these teddy bears because she has 2 little grandchildren, and I thought she would enjoy having these as a gift for the babies. So I made those two and I've already given them to her, so I don't have them to share with you. But I do have another one of the teddy bears that I made a few months ago, and I'm going to be taking this at the end of the month to a family member. And so I thought I would just share with you. So with Palishka Bunny's design, it's a top-down design. You start with the head, and you can knit this flat or in the round. She gives instructions for both. And then you finish off the head, you stuff it, and then you pick up stitches and you continue on into the body. You stuff it, you seal it off. Then you make the arms separately, you make the legs separately, and then you attach the arms and legs by sewing through to the other side. And while you're doing the head, she does give a lot of instructions so that you get the shape of the head and the shape of the body. And then Maria gives video instructions of how to stuff this so that you're molding the polyfill to look exactly the way the character should look. So I find that very helpful. There's nothing that you have to sew together unless you knit it in the flat, and some people enjoy that process, so you do have those instructions. And then she gives you instructions for the eyes, how to embroider the nose, and how to embroider the eyebrows. You knit the ears separately and you sew them on. There's instructions of where to place everything on the face. I don't use those safety eyes. Maria does, and it looks absolutely fantastic. I don't, because I worry for the little ones. And then, yeah, that's about it for that. All I can tell you. I've mentioned this teddy bear a number of times before. What I have done is I've added this little bow tie, and I use hair elastics. And I knit in the round, and I put the instructions on my Ravelry page with these teddy bears, but I knit in the round a number of stitches for a certain number of rounds, and then I take it off, and the centerpiece I just sew it around and attach it to that elastic, and then I just pull the elastic over the teddy bear's head. And it does fit over. It takes a little bit to pull it and stretch it. And then I think they look really cute to have that little extra bow or extra feature. You could make her clothing. She has fabulous clothing for these characters. You could do a scarf if you wanted to. I just chose to do in those two that I made for my knitting friend. I chose to do bow ties, and I chose to do a bow tie for this one as well. I love the patterns. They're a quick knit because these pieces aren't very big. It's the stuffing and the embroidery here that takes a little bit of time. One other thing that I'm going to share with you, I use this polyfill from our local supply store, and it works really, really well for the babies. So I just thought I would share that with you. I do have the link to Nevern's in the description below, along with the link to Maria's pattern, as well as to the link to my design, my teddy bears on my page, and the information about the bow tie. So that is the teddy bear toy by Maria Ermolova, and check out her patterns because they're absolutely fantastic. She has a number of books, and for those of you who aren't knitters, she also does all of these designs in crochet. So it serves all of us crafters who want to create these beautiful stuffies for the little ones in our families. Mesh with Summer is a drops design. And if you've seen my previous videos, I've made this. I think this is the third one I've made this summer. The first one that I made was a long sleeve one, and then I made two that were short sleeve or sleeveless, as this one is. So I will tell you a little bit about the pattern. I don't have this top to share with you because I sent it to my sister-in-law who lives in Deep South Alabama, and she's enjoying it because it's perfect for her weather as well. So the design actually is a long sleeve, and you have two options for the body length. You can make a very long one, like almost to the knees, is what the picture shows. And you can also make a shorter one, like I have made here, that is more of a shirt or a sweater length design. So the recommendation is to use a 6mm needle, a worsted weight yarn. And so for this particular one, I used a 6mm needle around the neck, and then I used 6.5 on the body, and which is a US 10.5, and I think that's what she recommended in the pattern. And they also recommend a worsted weight yarn. So I managed to get gauge with this Estelle Linacot, which is 50% linen and 50% cotton, which is perfect for warmer weather. And I made an extra large, and I used 138 grams of this cotton. So let me tell you a little bit about the design. It is a bottom-up construction. You knit the front, you knit the back, and then you sew them together at the shoulder. You sew the side seam. There is a split seam at the bottom with the band, and then you knit the sleeves, and then you sew the sleeves into the armholes, and then you sew the sleeves up. That's a lot of sewing, and that's not good for me. So when I read a pattern, I often make changes. If there is a lot of sewing, or I won't particularly do that pattern, I'll move on to something else if I don't feel comfortable making the change. So what I changed here is I knit the front, and then I put the shoulders on holders. I knit the back, and then I Kitchener stitched the shoulders together, which is better for me because I'm not a great sewer. I did sew the side seam. I attempted that, and it looked okay. And then for the long sleeve one, I just picked up the stitches in the armhole, and then I did a number of rounds of garter, and then I followed the pattern, and I just did the longer sleeves. In this one here, I just picked up the stitches in the armhole, I did a number of rounds of garter, and then I cast off. Number of rounds of garter at the neck, which was the instruction in the pattern, and I followed that same instruction and put that onto the sleeveless design that I did. It worked out great. It was really well received by my sister-in-law. I know she's enjoying wearing it, and it's a really quick, easy knit because of the big loops that you're creating with the needles. And what else I would tell you about this, in the pattern they said when you go to measure to hang it and measure as you hang it, which is good because the weight, especially if you're doing the longer one, the weight will really pull down on that fabric. But I would also say when somebody puts it on, it goes out this way too, as it goes over our body and over our curves. So the first one I made and gave to a friend, it was too short because I had just measured it hanging, and I didn't take in account for going over the rest of a part of the body. So I ended up just picking up stitches at the bottom and adding a number of rows of garter to extend it for, I don't know, whatever I needed to in order for it to work for my friend. So it's a great design. It's a quick knit. I've made 3, and the reason I did this one is because my sister-in-law saw the pictures of the other 2 that I had done. She's like, oh, I really love that. And I had this leftover yarn, and I just thought, here's an opportunity to use it and to make her happy. And so that's what I did. Zigzag Gauntlets, and this design is by Lisa Hoffman. I am a member of the Toronto Knitters Guild, and we meet from September till June, And every month we have 2 meetings. The first one is for us to share our knits, whatever we have on our needles. And the second meeting is when the executive brings in experts who teach us all different kinds of things about knitting and crocheting, and it's fantastic. We have an opportunity to learn each month. At one of our meetings, we had the pleasure of meeting Shirley Paden, who is a designer and a knitwear instructor, and she did an hour session with us together, and at the end she provided these books as a raffle for a few of us to win, and I was one of those fortunate members who managed to win this book, and Shirley sent it my way. When I got this book, I flipped through it and I marked off so many different designs that I really wanted to make. And just recently I was thinking of creating something for a friend's birthday, and I selected the zigzag gauntlets. And it's such a beautiful pattern here, the way the designer is wearing it. So I knew my friend, who's quite funky dresser, and I knew she would love them. So I created those for her, and here they are. I have the two. They do have the thumb, and they are fingerless. So let me tell you a little bit about the instructions by Lisa. She recommends to use 3.5 millimeter needles, US 4, and a sport weight yarn. So what I decided to use was Drops Flora, which is 65% wool, I believe, and 35% alpaca, and I managed to get gauge with this using 3.5 millimeter needles. And in the instructions in this particular book, there is only one size, so I made that size. What I can tell you about the design is that you start at the upper arm, I guess I would say, and it is a I-cord start, and then you are following the charts, and look at the beautiful texture, a ribbing all on the inside, and a gorgeous texture and some twists and turns in that design. I think I'm going to hold it up this way. I just thought it was absolutely fabulous what Lisa's done in this design. Little bit of eyelet, just gorgeous texture, some cable twists there, and there are 2 sets of instructions for the left and the right. You'll also notice that the finish at the finger end is also an I-cord finish, and same with the end of the thumb. It's also an I-cord finish. So quite lovely design by Lisa, and I'm really happy with them. I think my friend's going to absolutely love them. You could follow Lisa's chart and just do from the wrist up, and it would work really well. The way she has written her chart, it would be a very easy change to make them shorter if it's not something that you wanted to have for this length. Yeah, and those are the zigzag gauntlets, a very interesting knit. I can't say I could do this traveling or in front of the TV, because you really had to pay attention to the changes in the chart with this particular pattern. Anything that I learned in this one, I don't think there was anything new that I had done. It was pretty straightforward. I've done reading from charts and all these stitches before, so that wasn't new. And There wouldn't be anything that I would change unless I wanted to make a shorter pair. And would I make these again? Absolutely. I think they're really pretty, and I'm happy with the yarn that I selected, and I think my girlfriend's she's gonna love them. Happy birthday. As I mentioned earlier, I've been on a stuffy craze for the last year, and Alaya the elephant has been a design by Isolde that I've made now. This is the third one. So this little one is for my niece's niece on her fiance's side of her family. And she asked me if I could do one. So here we go. And the recommendation by Isolde is to use a 3mm needle and to use a DK weight yarn. And I used 3mm needles, and I decided to do a worsted weight yarn because I tend to really stuff them firmly, and if I do a DK, they kind of get, you can see the stuffing behind because I'm probably overdoing it, but I like them to be a little bit firmer. So I have used an Estelle worsted weight yarn, which is really good for the stuffies. It's 50 acrylic, 40 wool, and 10% nylon. And this one that I did is color Q61291, and it's a light gray, and it worked out really well. It's a little bit rustic looking, which I like. It's not a shiny gray, it's a little more rustic. And then I put the lettering on there after, which is a duplicate stitch. And I used again the Estelle worsted, and this is colorway Q61239, and it's a pink color and I've used this for other items that I was making. So for the elephant, I used 80 grams. When you buy the Estelle worsted, it's 100 gram skein, and I used 80 grams for Isolde's pattern. So a couple things I'll tell you about this. The elephant, you start with the head, and you're making the trunk as well, and she gives you all the instructions for the shaping of the head. And then once the head is sealed off, you then pick up stitches and you do the body, you stuff the body, and you seal that off. And then she gives instructions for picking up stitches at both sides for the arms. You knit in the round and you stuff it and seal off the arm, and the same thing for the legs. This is where I made some changes. I made the arms and the legs an inch longer. I didn't attach them in the way that Isolde shows in the pattern. I did it separate, and then I sewed from this side in through the body to catch this other arm so that the limbs would be movable. And I've learned this from another toy designer, and I just wanted that flexibility and the movability with the limbs with this animal, so I made those changes. Isolde's pattern is excellent. If you're afraid of doing stuffies, and I was nervous at first, I was afraid about, where do you put because you have to put the ears on after, pick up the stitches, and then knit back and forth, and there's some short rows in there. You're not stuffing the ears, but her instructions and has so many great pictures and arrows to show you exactly where to place the ears, where to stitch on the arms and the legs. It's really, really well done. And the only thing I found a little bit strange about, and I made this change as well with the other two that I made, there was no instruction for a tail, and I just thought, nope, I need to add a tail. So I did a little I-cord tail, and then once the stitches were live at the end, I used a crochet hook to pull in some extra yarn, and I just knotted it and then cut the little extra yarn there to create that tail. And I put the instructions of how I did that on my Ravelry page with any of these that I've done. I think this is the third elephant that I've done, and so I showed how I made that tail in my notes section. So if you want to do it, the instructions are there, and it's really actually pretty simple. With all of the elephants, I decided to use duplicate stitch and put the initials of the child on the elephant. I also embroidered the eyes. You could use safety eyes, but it depends on the age of the child. I just wasn't ready to do that. I'd rather stay on the side of caution, and I just went with these embroidered eyes. I thought I'd share with you at our local our fabric store, I managed to buy these super long darning needles. I'm just going to show you. They're really, really pointed, and they also have, the yarn can actually go through well at the ends. And these needles are great when it's time to go through the body and sew the arms and the legs onto the body of these animals. So I bought, I think there were 4 in a package, and they were about $15 for a set. So I've put the link to Neverin's sewing supply store. They do have an online presence, so I put the link to their store in the description below. If you need to order these, I found them really, really helpful to have these longer needles if you're creating a lot of stuffies and you're sewing their limbs on. So that was one thing that I wanted to share with you, and I think that's about it. Isolde's pattern's fabulous. Instructions are great. I added my little Care Bear tag on there, and yeah, I'm ready to gift it at the end of the month. This is The Elephant by Isolde. Along with knitting for family, I like to get involved with the community and do some knits for charity. And one of the knits that I've been focusing on for charity for the last couple months is the angel gown for our local hospital. I belong to the Toronto Knitters Guild, and in June we had a presentation from 3 organizations here in Toronto that asked us if we wanted to volunteer. They gave us some ideas and ways that they could use some knits that would support their cause. And so one of the local hospitals talked about this angel gown. The design was provided by one of our members, and it's been linked on our website. So this was the one I chose to work with throughout the summer, and it's on Ravelry. It is a free pattern. It's by Christine Woolley, and I have made a number of these. Christine's recommendation is to use a fingering weight yarn and 3.25 millimeter needles, or a US 3, and I ended up working with some DK yarn, and it seemed to work out really well. I used 3.25 millimeter needles, and I used this Estelle blank DK yarn. It's for dyeing, but it's really, really soft, and it's 75% wool and 25% polyamide. So I thought, you know what, it felt really soft, and the request from the local hospital was, could you keep it white or pastel, really soft yarn, and so that's what I've done. The pattern's really simple. It's back and forth. It starts with a bit of a garter stitch at the top, and there's a little bit of lace in the top yoke as you go back and forth. Then you cast off for the armholes, and then you just go back and forth for the lower part and the front part, back in front of the gown until the very end, and then it is just a garter stitch for a number of rows and then a cast off. So it's a really, really simple, easy to knit, great cause, and you can do this while you're watching TV, listening to a book. It's and it's a really, really fast knit. So I think one of these for me was about 35 grams of yarn that I needed. I made a couple changes in the pattern in that I put a buttonhole at where I was joining the ribbon. So I just found that was an easier join, so I did a buttonhole there, also at the next ribbon, and I just found that easier to sew it on. I'm not a great sewer, so I was doing whatever I could to make it a little bit easier for myself and to make sure that the ribbon actually stayed in place. So I think I'm ready to walk to the local hospital. I have made 9 of these in the last few months. This is the last one that I've done during the month of August, and I'm going to deliver these and then talk to somebody there, and if they're still in need, I'm going to continue with this throughout the winter because I'm enjoying it. It's I think people use the expression, it's a palette cleanser, and I've been doing this between larger projects, other projects, and it's just a nice change and a break and an excellent cause to support the local community. So this is the Angel Gown by Christine Woolley. In the beginning of June, I had the opportunity to travel to Argentina, and I knew I was going to do some yarn shopping there. So before I left, I went to my queue and I took a look at what are the projects there that I want to buy yarn in Argentina. And so this was one of the items that I wanted to make. I wanted to add a cardigan to my wardrobe, and I really like the Lakes cardigan as it's a V-neck by Ozetta, and that's the pattern that I bought from on Ravelry, and I made a size small. So I wrote out all of the requirements that I was going to be using 5.5 millimeter needles on the body, 5 millimeters on the cuff, and then the button band was 4 millimeter needle or US 6. And then the instructions was an Aran plus a lace weight to equal an Aran weight. And so when I was in Argentina, that's what I was looking for. And I went to that store that I'm showing you on the screen there. There's their logo, and I managed to pick up this lovely llama yarn that I knew was going to work as far as the weight, and it's just such a lovely feel, and I really was happy with the color. And so I came home and I started to work with this yarn. I was making myself this cardigan. First thing that I ran into was this yarn, this llama, was shedding everywhere, on my clothing, all over the couch, wherever I was sitting, and that. So I banned myself. I said, that's it. I am going to be knitting outside with this yarn. So I sat outside, the fluff was flying in the air, and I worked and worked and worked and worked on this cardigan. I was in very, very bright light, and it wasn't until I came inside and was working on the bottom band, and look what you see. Can you see it? It's a dye lot difference from probably the V-neck section down. I think you can absolutely see it. I was in shock. I was like, oh my goodness. I couldn't believe it. And I don't even know how I could have not done that, because to be honest, it's so hard to see when you hold these yarns together. And when I bought this, it wasn't on sale. It was one of their nicer yarns, but there was no band, so there was no checking, and I didn't even think to take it like into bright light and put it together to see if there was a difference in the yarn. So I had bought 5 hanks or skeins, 150 grams each, and the first two that I was working with was fine. I got to the third, and then until I came in the house, and I didn't notice that difference. So I was a little bit disappointed, and then I thought, you know what? The intent of this cardigan is to wear after skating, to wear after a bath, and just cozy up on the couch in the deep of winter. And so I thought, you know, I'm not going anywhere with it. It's quite, I made a small, but it's a big baggy cardigan, and so I decided I don't know if I'm going to do anything about it, because when I pulled out the other skeins and I laid them down, I couldn't tell even if I was to rip this out and use the others if it was going to be the same or any different. I thought, I don't know if I'm ready to do that. It's meant to be for home, it's meant to be cozy, and so I left it. So that part is a little bit disappointing, but I really love the design. So this is made top-down construction, some short rows in the back. Look at the way you do the shoulder pieces first, and then you add on the back and the front to these shoulder pieces, which I think just looks fabulous. And that's giving you that shoulder palette there, and then across the back. And then just knitting back and forth on the body, and then doing the cuff in 1/2 size smaller needle, and then I used a 4mm on the button band. And these buttons were actually from my mama, who has been gone for a number of years, but she was a sewer, and she had this button jar, and inside this button jar I found these old leather buttons. Even the back was a little piece of leather that I actually had to sew. I don't know if I can actually get close enough to show you that, but the buttons were a bit dry, so I went to my husband to get some leather protector leather treatment, and I coated these buttons in that treatment, and they just came back to life. So I was really, really happy with that. I'm going to put this right on top of my other sweater. It's a great V-neck design, and I'm happy with the buttons. I'm happy with the button band. I love the fit of this sweater. I'm going to back up so that you can see the whole thing. And I love the yarn. So great construction. Would I make this cardigan again? Absolutely. I made a size small, and I used 540 grams of yarn for this, and I don't think there's anything I'd change going forward. I make the same size. I like the size of the cardigan. I like the cuffs. It was really easy knit. It was something you could do listening to a book, watching TV, because it's just straightforward back and forth knitting and purling. And the only thing that I've learned is I didn't even think to ask about, is there a potential of dye lot difference with this yarn? And going forward, I'm going to be traveling to Scandinavian countries in the new year, and that's definitely something I'll watch for. If there aren't any ball bands, I'll look to and ask the question about dye lot to ensure that I don't run into that difference again. But as far as the design, I think it's a lovely cardigan, and I'd make it again. It's the Lakes cardigan by Ozetta. So it's the start of September, and during the month of August, I was thinking, what am I doing this year for the kids for Halloween? So I've made in the past a number of pumpkins and witches' hats and all different kinds of things. And so this year I thought, I am going home to visit family at the end of the month, and I'll take with me some of these extra little fun ornaments for the Halloween season. A couple of them really love Halloween, and so I dug out the pattern that I have by Rosemary Scove, and it's a free pattern on Ravelry. It's for the ghost pumpkins as well as just regular pumpkins. So this one that I made, I used a 3.5 millimeter needle, a worsted weight yarn, and you knit in the round. I use double pointed needles. You could use circular if you have them for that sizing. And you actually do, even though you're seeing the purling here, you're doing mostly knitting because you then turn it inside out to have this effect. So it is a bottom up, and then you turn it inside out. You stuff it and seal it off, pulling it through a little bit to give it a bit of shaping, and then you add, I think she knits in the round for the stem. I don't, I just do an I-cord, and then I pull the I-cord through and then back up here to do the stitching for the eye, and across to do a diamond over here, and then to do the stitching for the mouth area. And Rosemary has really good instructions on how to do this, and take a look at her pattern because she's got some really cute ideas where she uses actual buttons here instead of stitching. But again, because I'm leaving these at some homes with little ones, I don't want them to bite off and choke on a button, so I've decided just to keep it with the embroidered stitches. And this is just some extra black acrylic yarn that I had in my stash. I stuffed with a polyfill, the same polyfill that I use for all the baby toys, the stuffies. And the reason I did these with that is just because of the cream color. I don't want anything else to bleed through. So I've actually made a number of these. I just have a heyday. They're so fast to make and they're super cute. So I did these, and the yarn that it's just an acrylic. I think I picked this up at a yard sale. It was a huge ball of acrylic. I've used it over and over a number of years making those ghost pumpkins. And it's an Aran or worsted weight yarn, 3.5 millimeters or 3 US, so it's quite easy to do. I also decided I had some of this Borgo de Pazia Luna yarn. I know I didn't say that right. I don't even have the button band to show you. A friend of mine had knit something with this yarn and had a little bit left, and she said just try working with it, just make something small. So I knew I had it in my stash. They were great harvest looking colors, so I used this yarn. Quite thick. I'm going to show you. It's got to be a bulky yarn for sure, and that's all I have left. But I only had about 30 grams, or I don't know. So I used about 21 grams of this to make the pumpkins. I used 3.5 millimeter for the smaller ones. For these I used 6.5 or 6 millimeter needles, so a US 10. And for the stem, again, I did an I-cord. I used a 3 millimeter needle to do the I-cord. What I did differently is I didn't stuff them with the polyfill that I normally do with stuffies. I keep a jar of all the little yarn bits that I cut off, and here's my jar, and I just throw all those little bits in there. And once it gets filled up, I move it. I keep this in my living room, and as I cut, I throw everything in there. So what I did was, this is bottom-up construction, same as the ghost pumpkin. And then when I got to the top and ready to stuff it, I used all those little bits. And so I had put all the bits in, and halfway through, I stopped and added a couple drops of patchouli oil. It's very potent if it's real oil. So just a couple drops, and then I continue to stuff. And so where this sits, you can smell the patchouli, and it's, if you like the smell of patchouli or lavender, you could add any essential oil into it, but it just smells great. Maybe even, I don't know, whatever you like for a Halloween. But I added patchouli because I just think it smells wonderful. And I actually use patchouli when I wash all my knits and soak them in water, and then before blocking, I will put a couple drops of patchouli into the water. You have to be careful though, because the oil is kind of an amber color, and if you have light fabric fiber, it can stain the fiber, so you really have to swish it in the water to ensure that it's mixed in well. And not everybody likes the scent, so careful, and careful how much you use. Again, only a couple drops because it's pretty potent. And yeah, so I made a couple of these larger pumpkins for decor to take home to family as well. And I used up the little bit of yarn that I had in my stash. So those are the pumpkins by Rosemary, and really easy knit. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and a little something to do before Halloween season. Another treat for the Halloween season that I made for family members are these cute little ghosts, Gus and Augustus. They are a free pattern by Trixie Lynch on Ravelry. And here are the little ones that I made. Trixie recommends 3.5 millimeter needle or US 4 worsted weight yarn. She recommended Cascade 220. You don't really need a lot of yarn to do these. It's a pretty simple structure. The pattern includes both of them. I just used a worsted acrylic, excuse me, that I had in my stash. I bought it at a yard sale. I don't even have the band. I can't even tell you, but it's probably a big value super saver acrylic yarn, and I use it for these kinds of things. So last year I had given a couple family members the little ghosts, the ghost pumpkins, and so I'm not going to give those again to them. I'll give them these skeleton pumpkins. I'm going to give them a ghost to go with their skeleton pumpkin. And so the difference in these two, it's bottom up, and you start in the round and you get out to a certain point, and then it just structure goes up to the very top. You stuff it. I used a polyfill stuffing that was white so it wouldn't bleed through this creamy color for the ghost, and then I sealed it off. And I was knitting in the round. It was pretty fast and easy. And then I just used some extra black yarn and embroidered the eyes. Pattern is super simple to follow. The other one a little bit different. So same thing, you're starting in the round at the bottom, and you get to a certain level, and then you just start to go up. And then you stuff it, you seal it off. I added the eyes. These eyes I did as a duplicate stitch. The other ones I just did an embroidered round eye, just playing around. And then they have you with this little one pinch the bottom and kind of like whip stitch it, not quite, but kind of make a little skirt, I guess. And all the instructions Trixie gives in the pattern. It was pretty simple and easy to follow. Yeah, I don't know if I would do these ghosts again. I always like looking for something different at the holiday, to something fun. And I have a couple of family members who are really into Halloween, so I just try to find something different to give to them. So this is Gus and Augustus Ghosts by Trixie. So those are my finished objects for the month of August, and I have put all the links in the description below to both my projects as well as the links to the designers. Some of them are purchase patterns, most of them are free patterns, and I obtain all of these patterns on Ravelry. Even the one that I shared with you, the gauntlets, the zigzag gauntlets, I found that pattern in Shirley Paden's book, but it's also an available purchase pattern on Ravelry. So those are all my knits for August, and now I'm going to show you what I have on my needles. Now I'm going to share with you my latest WIP, and yes, I say WIP because it's just one. I tend to just work on one WIP at a time. It works for me. I know there are people out there who can do a number of them at a time, and cheers to you. It's just not something that my brain can handle. So I focus on one WIP, and I'm going to show you what that is. I'm working right now on the Weasley sweater. It's a design by Allison Hansel, and it is a Harry Potter Weasley knit. She has a number of sizes, and this is a size child small, I think, because there's some smaller sizes before that, a toddler, and I did it this child size. I had done this before for my great nephew, and my niece had asked me if I would do one for her niece on her fiance's side of the family, and so I said, sure. What color do you want? And so she said, I'd really like it to be like a rich wine red, and so I picked that out with some gold lettering. Her niece's name starts with an E, so we put an E on the front. I'm presently working duplicate stitch to put the letter J on the back, and I'm not quite there yet. This is a bottom-up design, and I am using a DK weight yarn, and it's a really simple cast on at the bottom. And the way Allison gives instructions on this is you knit the front, and then you knit the back, and then you sew them together at the top, and you put on the collar, and then you knit the sleeves, and you sew them into the armhole, and then you sew the sleeves up. That doesn't work so much for me. I'm a terrible sewer, so I knit in the round up until the point of the armholes, and then I went back and forth for the front, back and forth for the back. I left the back and front on stitch holders, and then I kitchener stitched the shoulders together. I put the collar on, and then I picked up the number of stitches necessary for the sleeves. I picked them up in the armhole, and I followed the instructions for decreasing, and I knit those in the round. I used 4mm needles for the whole thing, except for the collar is 3.5mm needles. Even the cuff is 3.5mm needles. You'll notice in Allison's pattern that she does a ribbed cuff. I didn't do a ribbed cuff. I chose to do a rolled cuff, just like the bottom of the body, and same at the collar, so I did the same at the sleeves. But if you want the ribbed cuff, she does give the instructions for that. I'll show you what yarn I used. Estelle double knit yarn. It is 50% acrylic, 40 wool, and 10% nylon. And this colorway is 65509 for that wine red color. And then for the gold lettering, which is maybe more of a mustard rather than a gold, I used the same yarn, and I used colorway 65577, and I'm getting there. I'm going to wash it and block it, and I think I have some extra yarn, so actually I have quite a bit of extra yarn. I think there's about 90 grams left here. I used about 110 on the sweater, and I used very little with the lettering. But I had these colors in my stash, and so I only bought extra of the wine. I had this colorway already because I had made an Elmo sweater for another great niece, and these were the colors that I happened to use. So this was extra yarn. So now that I have this extra, I think I'm going to do a hat and some toddler mittens to go with this sweater. I think that would be kind of cute. And I will tell you, the pattern that Allison gives only has the H lettering, so, and she gives instructions for you. You can knit the H into the front of the sweater, or she mentions that you can use duplicate stitch. So I just marked off where the H lettering would start as I was going body from the bottom up. I just put in a removable stitch marker, and then I was able to add the letters. I didn't want to add the H. I wanted to put the children's letters for their name. And I have this Harry Potter book for knitting I bought when there was a sale at one of our local yarn shops, because I have a couple nieces who are totally into the Harry Potter scene, and they're having babies and what have you. So what I found in the book is they have all the letters. So I didn't have to modify that H, which I was fearing I was going to have to do. So that was great because I have the letters in this book. They do have the Weasley sweater in this book, but it's an adult size. So I really appreciated Allison's pattern, which I believe is a free pattern on Ravelry. I will put the link to my project as well as to Allison's pattern into the description below so that you can pick it up. And I'll also put the information about this book, because if you're into Harry Potter or you have family members who are, there's a lot of stuffies and scarves, and like there you can see there's one stuffy over here and another one over there, and a number of sweaters and scarves, and I've made fingerless gloves with the lunar moon phases on it. So there's all kinds of fun different knits in this book if you're interested in Harry Potter. So I'll put the link to this book as well in the description below. So this concludes my knits and my latest WIP. I have started my September knits, and I'll share those with you next month. If there's anything here that you saw today that you found inspiring, or you're going to go off and do some searching, please add in the comments below. If there's something that you know about stuffies or things that I've talked about, I love to learn from others, so please feel free to share with me what you have experienced or what you're doing with your needles today. I wish you well, and I thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a great month as you create and go into the fall. Be well, take care, bye.